Now, finally, let's have a next year's meeting report, and we've got just a matter of a few minutes to do that. Stephen and I have been working on that. We were going to go to Oklahoma, fell through. We were going to go to Flagstaff, Arizona, fell through. Steve and I ended up working very, very hard on some ideas. He says, what about just south of where I am and just west of where you're at? We're about, what, 100 miles apart or something like that. And so Steve is going to present where we have been out in the last few weeks, scouting the area, looking it over, and both of us worked the area before. So Steve, please.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. So what we're proposing is that next year we have the meeting in Southern Idaho, that we host it out of either Burley, and that would be our preference. Although Burley is not a very large town and doesn't have a lot of resources, but if we can define the resources and get them reserved, then that's where we'd like to host it out of. And we'll be either in the second week or maybe even the first week of June, where we haven't firmed up the final date, but kind of hold those days, that period of time open, so you can attend the meeting. So June. Let me just go through a few things. Yep, of June. Some of the places we might visit. We're going to go into the Albion Mountains, if you're familiar with those. Oh, okay. Put my finger not on the mic. Okay, so if you're familiar with the Albion Mountains, and some of you know City of Rocks, it's on the south end of that. We're going to do some touring in that area where we have some interesting penstemons. We're going to be touring the South Hills of the area around south of Twin Falls. And we also have some interesting penstemons in that area. And one of the penstemons areas we're going to visit on that tour is the Penstemon Idahoensis site. How many of you have seen Idahoensis? Oh, more than I thought would have, because it's where? Nowhere. It's hard to get to, but we're going to go and let you see a new penstemon that grows in a very, very interesting and very specific site. And then we're still working on the final tour a little bit, but we think we might go into the Sublette Mountains, which are in Power County, kind of south of the area between Burley and American Falls. One of the reasons that we want to host the meeting in this area is because it's a very, very interesting and unique and very messy taxonomically penstemon place. We have a series of what we call the big blue penstemons. That's something Michael and I made up, but we just call them that because we didn't know what else to call them. But we do that affectionately. But anyway, Penstemon cyaneus, Penstemon strictus, no, not strictus, speciosus. Sorry, I did this in like 5 minutes just before I came to the meeting. So speciosus, which grows in that area. Penstemon cyananthus variety cyananthus, and Penstemon cyananthus variety subglaber, which are two quite different penstemons, and we're not even, Michael and I have been discussing, we're not even sure they belong together under the same species, but we need you to help decide that. See, so we need you to help come in and decide that. And then finally, Penstemon propulcher, which is another one of that was a big five. So let me just show you what they kind of look like, and they have a lot of similarities in the way they look. Penstemon cyaneus, and I'll kind of show you where they grow with respect to each other. But this is the largest flowering one, has the largest flowers of the group, and each of them also has other unique, of those frustrating characteristics like anther hairiness, anther size, anther shape, and all those kinds of things that are really hard to know, but they have differences in those. But sometimes those differences aren't very clear. Penstemon speciosus, which has some a wide range of expression in a lot of different places. Penstemon cyananthus variety cyananthus is basically a mountain species, and it grows at higher elevations. And then Penstemon cyananthus subglaber is a desert species, or is a desert variety. It grows in very, very different habitats than does the variety cyananthus. And then finally, Penstemon purpulchre. Now, if we take a look at where these grow, Penstemon cyananthus, let's see, do I have an arrow? No, okay. Penstemon cyaneus kind of grows north of the Snake River up into the central mountains of Idaho. And it extends. Sometimes you see specimens that are listed cyaneus that are actually south of the Snake River, but not very often. Penstemon speciosus grows a lot in the Owyhees, and then you see specimens that have been collected as far east as Twin Falls. Species cyananthus, variety cyananthus grows only in the mountains on the eastern side. That's the kind of purplish line there, and doesn't really come out of the mountains. Penstemon cyananthus mixes in with cyaneus, but always at lower elevations. And then finally, Penstemon purpulchre is kind of limited to this area that's along the Snake River and south of Twin Falls, but occasionally you find specimens that are outside of that. In fact, you find all of them outside of that, outside of the boundaries I've drawn here. And you also see that right here, they kind of all come together, except for variety cyananthus, and it's messy, and they don't fit what they belong. And I haven't seen as many specimens of these specimens as Michael has, but he says that when you look at the herbarium specimens for any of these five, they're often way wrong.
They are so wrong that they actually collected Penstemon purpulchre, the government did for the agencies, and collected it, are propagating it and releasing it for a burn recovery, all those kinds of things under the name of Penstemon cyaneus. And we were the ones that said, wait a minute, it's not right. We went to the original collection site, it's a purpulchre site, and yet they're wanting it for cyaneus. It is really confusing for the folks. And when we started looking at the 2 or 3 characteristics, they are definitely different species, but it's that messy.
So anyway, come and help us straighten it out. And then we're thinking of taking a Monday tour out to Aberdeen, to my plots on the Aberdeen Research and Extension Center, where we have, I'm not even sure how many, but I'm guessing between 60 and 80 species of penstemon, most of which will be in full bloom in the first couple of weeks of June. And so you can come and visit, and we can walk around and poke in them. So that's it. Thank you, Michael.
What's that? It is a really, really interesting area. I, after a while, began, there's freeways that come from Pocatello across over towards Burley, and then from Burley down to Tremont, and it creates a triangle. And after I started looking at that triangle over and over and over on the maps and looking at all these things that's going on, I begin to say it's the Bermuda Triangle of penstemon. Just a lot of strange things going on out there. And so we've had a lot of fun, and I had a graduate student working on it. We still have data that have not been analyzed yet from my student. He didn't get to all the steps he wanted to. Eyes bigger than belly or something like that. I don't know, maybe the professor's eyes were bigger than his belly. And so we've still got some of that data hanging around, and we're still, this spring, I was just going nuts because I've been in the field most of the time, come home, write a sentence to answer people for this meeting, and then run back out to the field. So, and Steve and I have been running up and down there. So we're excited about the prospects. After Steve proposed it, I got out there with him. I said, I think this is kind of an interesting place to take the society to. So, and there are other species there besides these, okay? There are several other species.